Time now for another look at some of today's business news. I'm going to wander over once again to our video wall here in the studio to join France 24's Cole Stangler from our business desk. And Cole, you're starting out, of course, in Russia, where Western companies are continuing to cut ties.
Yeah, that's right, Thomas. That list of companies seems to grow really on a daily basis in Russia. Now includes everything from retailers and lenders to mining giants. Just in the last few days, a number of iconic American brands have said they're suspending business. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Levi's. They were joined Thursday by Japanese retailer Uniqlo. Yesterday, British firm Rio Tinto became the first major mining firm to join that list, while a couple of major banks on Wall Street also announced plans to wind down business. Now, this hasn't gone without notice in Russia as both consumers and public authorities grapple with the fallout. Yinka Oyatade reports.
A few weeks ago, shoppers at this mall in Moscow would have had the choice of buying at any store. Today, it's a different story. Several shops have lights off and shutters down. Moscow's invasion in Ukraine has triggered an exodus of Western brands pulling out operations from Russia, leaving a trail of unhappy customers behind. This while prices for nearly all goods surge as the value of Russia's currency, the ruble, plummets.
Ситуация такая, что закрылось несколько бутиков. Из-за этого, может быть, грустно.
А вот цены не удивили вас?
Цены, но чувствуется, да, чувствуется, что цены подскочили.
Ну а что я могу сделать с этим? Я только могу с этим смириться, либо больше зарабатывать. Но, к сожалению, да, я могу только подстроиться, не больше.
Among some of the biggest brands to cease sales in Russia, H&M and Zara. Luxury retailers like Burberry and Chanel have also said that they are suspending operations. Equally severing ties, drinks giants Heineken and Starbucks, while Goldman Sachs became the first Wall Street bank to pull out. Russia says it may seize assets of Western companies that leave. The Kremlin has said it could take temporary control of firms where foreign ownership exceeds 25%. Putin is determined to not take the sanctions lying down.
Так же, как и преодолевали эти трудности в предыдущие годы, преодолеем их и сейчас.
In response, the White House has said the move to seize assets would result in more economic pain for Moscow. Russia is already struggling to cope under the weight of Western sanctions. Analysts forecast that its economy could shrink by as much as 8% this year.
Well, with all that uncertainty looming over one of the world's largest oil producers, it's been a roller coaster ride for prices. Today, staying relatively stable, international benchmark Brent crude trading at $111 a barrel, down from its 14-year high earlier this week. It was all the way at $139 a barrel earlier. Still, investors remaining anxious over the war in Ukraine after a very rough day on Thursday. Major European indexes with some slight gains at the open today. Investors trying to make sense of a number of pressures in addition to the war. Yesterday, Europe's central bank said it would end a bond buying program this summer. That's in addition to data showing U.S. inflation at a 40-year high. And of course, the economic uncertainty isn't limited to Russia or the world's wealthiest economies. Higher prices for energy and other commodities like wheat could have a major impact on the developing world. That's what the IMF's first deputy managing director, Jita Gopinath, told France 24.
The ones that are exporters have the benefit of the increase in commodity prices and oil and gas prices. So that will help them through that channel. But again, in terms of general inflation in their economies, this would put pressure on inflation. These economies were recovering before this hit. Now this affects the speed of their recovery coming out. The countries that rely on tourism, let me give you the example of Egypt, for instance. Egypt is a country that relied on tourism coming out of Russia, that relied heavily on wheat exports coming out of Russia and Ukraine. So again, the hit to that country would be quite severe. It just varies depending upon the country and its trade relations.
Well, finally, EU leaders are wrapping up a two-day summit in Versailles. Much of it's focused on the war and the sensitive topic of reducing the bloc's heavy reliance on Russian energy. That's why Brussels isn't expected to follow the U.S. with an outright ban on oil and gas imports. The Foreign Secretary of the UK says they're aiming to help states gradually phase out that reliance on Russia. Take a listen.
We're working with our G7 partners to cut this dependence once and for all, to put a ceiling on the percentage of Russian energy imports and committing to bring it down over time. And we need to look at how we can help those countries that is especially dependent on Russian energy and how we can increase supplies elsewhere.
Now, Thomas, earlier this week, the EU said it would end all Russian oil and gas imports, quote, well before 2030, but of course it all depends really on the details there.
OK, Cole Stangler with that business summary. Thank you very much.